following program is closed captioned for the thinking impaired.
By tomorrow, I will rule the world!
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone.
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
Well, I mustn't.
I saw you hit something on that one.
No, I didn't. I unmuted myself. That's all. There's something wrong with the system.
Are we live?
Yes, we're live.
Oh, we are live. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm
gonna
sorry.
get this sooner or later. Intern girl.
It's not me. You're telling people this. Don't tell them that.
All right, okay, all right. Hey, how you guys doing? My name's Tom Duggan of the Paying Attention Podcast. Can we get the monitor on at some point?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. High atop the Golden Seal Apothecary here on Main Street, North Andover, right across the street from the Valley Patriot offices here in Main Street, North Andover. I'm going to say Main Street, North Andover like 9 more times. We have a great show for you today. I've got my friend Lenny Mirra with us, and I promise you we're going to have a new background, I think, by next week, and we'll have all the audio issues. We're a little late because we're having audio issues. But we also want to thank NCAM, who are hosting the show here. We lease the space, and by the way, it's very inexpensive. If you want to do your own podcast, this is the place to come. NCAM, North Andover Cable Access. So if Debo and Kelly want to call and make all kinds of noise, now they know who to call because I finally said it out loud. I want to talk about a few things before we do. I want to talk about our sponsors. And of course, all of our sponsors sponsored the bash. So Century 21, McLennan Real Estate, the Zanny Pesci Law Office, Marston & Son Construction. It was nice to see Ronnie Marston and Diana at the bash this year. They gave us, I believe, $500 for scholarships. That was really nice. EIS, Investigation and Gun Training, Tomo and Shaken Seafood, Clear Path for Veterans New England. Not only did they sponsor the bash and give us money for scholarships, but they bought a table, and they bought a whole table of veterans. And usually, Lenny, I throw out on Facebook, we've got a veteran table.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to sponsor it. And then a business will say, I want to sponsor a veteran table. So we'll put the business name on the table and give the veterans their check back, because veterans are supposed to be free. And nobody did that this year, so we ate it out of pocket. We gave them back their $500.
Wow.
We gave them a free. And that was not easy to do because our sponsorships was down. Everything was up this year except for sponsorships because I spent all my time on scholarships. And usually I portion my time out, but I digress. AFC Urgent Care, what a great thing to be able to give Zaka an award this year. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely, good people.
Who else do we have? Pleasant Valley Landscaping Contractors. A little sad that Dave Idconsoli couldn't make it. He tried, but his flight got delayed, so he couldn't be there. Chris's Barbershop, Enterprise Bank. The Enterprise Bank girls were there, some of them anyway. Were there. Jessica was there, and I'm so sorry I can't remember the other girl's name from the Methuen branch. She's the manager of the Methuen branch. But they were both there. W3ON, 4-Star Lighting, Stadium Chiropractic. And a free shout-out, even though it's still pretty cold, a free shout-out to JG's Ice Cream because, honestly, it doesn't matter how cold it is.
Absolutely.
It's always a good time for JG's Ice Cream. And honestly, they don't even sponsor the show.
No?
I just love them so much, and I give them free promos because I love them. Which is probably why I can't lose any weight. That could be part of the reason, too.
It might be, yes.
Like, they've got ice cream that I've never seen in my life. They have, like, glow-in-the-dark pink ice cream. Like, I have no idea what that is, but I order it all the time. And I'm like, just give me that one. It looks good. It's like a bubblegum ice cream, I think. It's really good. All right, so let's talk about a few things. We got Lenny Mirra's here. I want to talk about a few local things first. We had our bash, our annual charity bash, and it's kind of weird because when we were leaving the studio last week, intern girl and I, who produces the show, we're talking about what are we going to be talking about next week about the bash? Like, what's the big story going to be? Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of fun and funny moments, but I think really there was no big standout thing other than the tote board just kept going up and up and up and up, and we blew out every single record except for one. Can you pull the tote board up? We'll talk about what those are. Yep. So we blew every single record except for one record. So this is our final tote board. We got a $250 donation yesterday, which bounced this up to $67,291. That is all Facebook, all of it. It's all Facebook. We did a mailing. We did a couple of mailings, but 99% of that bottom line number is from people who saw us on Facebook, looked up what we were doing. People say that they researched last year's bash. They saw what we did. They loved what we did. And then Venmo'd us money, mailed us checks, sent us PayPal, whatever. And so here's how it broke down. Dan Cody Memorial Scholarship for Braylon McGuire, $13,280.
Wow.
So that's the only – we broke every record. We broke our high total at the bottom. Every single student on that list for that scholarship broke a record from previous years, except for the Cody Scholarship. The Cody Scholarship was $14,100 last year. They were about $900 short, maybe $850 short with my Lawrence High math. Carry the 1 divided by 2. So they were at $13,280. However, there may still be money coming in because yesterday was Wednesday, the Wednesday after the bash, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So 5 days later, we got a check for $250 that we applied to the Dan Strange Memorial Scholarship. Lawrence High Junior ROTC, if there was a disappointing part of the night, it was that we gave a scholarship to the junior ROTC commander, and the ROTC didn't show up. So we start off every year for 21 years, the Lawrence High Junior ROTC marches into the room because it shuts everybody the fuck up. And it's very hard to keep a room with 500 people in it quiet. But when the ROTC comes marching in, out of respect, they all shut up. And so we get a lot done in the first 15 minutes because everybody's quiet. And this year I was told 5 minutes before the show started that they weren't coming. And so I'm a little disappointed in Lawrence High School. We gave your kid $11,406. You didn't make the effort to bring the ROTC to be part of the beginning of the night. We feed the kids for free. We give them a lot of love in the newspaper. We give Lawrence High a lot of love in the newspaper. And we raised $11,406 for your kid. And you guys over at Lawrence High School couldn't get your act together to get the kids there to march in for your kid. So I don't blame J. Ronnie Ferrin, and I don't blame the kids in the ROTC. I blame the administrators at Lawrence High School who, once again, are giving us a hard time. But, Lenny, here's the best part about that. When Lawrence High alumni has their banquet night in May, I'm one of the feature speakers.
Smart.
They're going to be hearing about it. I promise you they're going to be hearing about it.
They should hear about it.
Because they're going to be in the room. They're going to be in the room, and I'm going to get up there and I'm going to say, hey, we sit through this night every night, and somebody gets up and gives a $100 scholarship, and everybody stands on their feet, and everybody's giving a standing ovation. We raised $11,000 for one of your kids, and you couldn't give a shit enough to be there. And I know why it is. This is not a mistake. This is not something that was an oversight. They're all a bunch of left-wing lunatics. At Lawrence High School, they're all left-wing lunatics, like your typical public school people. 2 years ago, I gave a speech at Lawrence High Alumni. We'll go back to the board in a minute. 2 years ago, I gave a speech at the Lawrence High Alumni Banquet, and basically what I said was, we do this scholarship thing every year, and we have 500-something people in the room. We have about 400 people who donate throughout the 3 months before the bash, and not one of them called me and said, is your kid black? Is your kid transgender? Right. Is your kid gay? Because I'm not giving if the kid's not in the right category. So, and then I say to the kids, right, because I always tailor my speech to the kids that are there, when you get to college, don't let anyone tell you that you're the sum of the category that you belong to. Right. Make them treat you like an individual. Do you know how many teachers came over to me after my speech and told me how out of control I was and how over the line my speech was? And
for saying that?
Right?
Yeah.
So listen, I graduated from Lawrence High School, and I know I get a lot of crap when I say I have Lawrence High math and I had to count on my fingers, divide by 3, carry the 1. I get a lot of crap for doing that. But you know what? If you guys at Lawrence High School gave a shit more about educating your kids than preaching political messages like global warming, abortion, gay marriage, and all the other crap that you teach them, if 80% of the kids that go to Lawrence High School didn't not go to college when they graduate, because only 20% of the kids that graduate go to college, and 90% of the kids that make it to college don't make it to their second year. Okay? So if you guys were doing your job, you wouldn't have to worry about Tom Duggan. Because when Tom Duggan said things negative about your school, the people who graduate from your school would be calling me, giving me shit, not the people teaching in your school or pretending that they're teaching at your school. Do you understand what I'm saying over there? It's going to be some tough love. And when Lawrence High Alumni comes up, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to have a few things to say this year because I held my tongue 2 years ago. And last year I didn't go because I was very sick, but I can promise you this. I'm going to be there in May this year. You're going to hear about it. Your kids are going to hear about it, and your parents are going to hear about it. And don't call me and don't send me emails and don't write me letters that I'm being mean to Latinos and this is racism. Because it's not about the students, it's about the administrators and the teachers. Mm-hmm. You don't blame the kids for not getting a good education if you're not the ones teaching them. So screw you guys over at Lawrence High School. You screwed up my program this year by not sending the junior ROTC. I'm a little upset about it because it here's what it did. It threw our program off, but we're big boys. We could handle it. But when your kid from Lawrence High School got up to get his scholarship, his fellow students weren't in the audience to cheer for him.
Right.
They weren't in all the pictures like every other year. We have the whole junior ROTC. We put them either on the front page or on page 3 with prime real estate for a paper. And you really screwed with your own kid. J. Ronnie Ferrin's a good kid. He's a good kid, and we picked him because he was a good kid. And you didn't snub me. You think you're snubbing me, but you didn't snub me. You snubbed J. Ronnie Farrin. You snubbed one of my kids. You hurt one of my kids, and that's always going to be a problem for me. So that's all I have to say.
I've been attending your bash for over 10 years now, right? I think this year's bash was probably the best one,
really?
Best organized. I mean, they're always fun and entertainment,
right.
And you always do a good job. I mean, tell me how efficient and economical it is when someone sends a check to this bash to help someone. How much of the check goes to the person?
100%.
There you go.
Yeah.
0% overhead.
Right.
So all of the money we donate goes right to the person it's
right.
intended to go to.
So you donated $1,000
every year,
and I think your $1,000 went to the Whittier kid.
Yes.
Or did we? I think so. It went to the
Usually does.
Natalie Delano.
Yes.
And she got $1,000 from your $1,000 check went directly to her, and that's why we structured the bash the way that we did, because when we first came up with the idea, when Chris Eldridge first came up with the idea of using the bash to raise scholarship money, there was a big story back then about the head of what's the big nonprofit. What's the big nonprofit where the head gets like a $6 million?
Well, that happens at United Way, Red Cross, and a bunch
United
of
Way. It was United Way.
Yeah, all the time. That's why I asked this question.
And then, like shortly after that, there was an earthquake in Haiti and the Haiti Relief Fund.
Yep.
And come to find out, 5 years after the Haiti Relief Fund earthquake, the disaster that happened, 10 cents on every dollar went where it's supposed to go.
This is the real disaster. It wasn't just the earthquake.
So
it was how that money was just skimmed off.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So what happens is people who want to give, people
Right.
who have big hearts, people who have the money to give, they become very hesitant to give because they don't know that their money's going where it's supposed to go. So when we started, Chris Eldridge and I started talking about using this bash to raise scholarship money, we had to devise a plan to make sure people knew, because I have a lot of enemies too, and as you know,
Don't we all?
Right? But my enemies are much more deadly than most people's, and they're trying to put me in prison. So I wanted to make sure that nobody could make the allegation that we were stealing money,
Right.
Or even hint that the money's not going where it's supposed to go. And then when Chris said, well, why don't you just thank every single donor on Facebook and keep a running total, so that the donor knows that it's added to the total and the kid's parents knows what's getting added to the total, and then everybody sees the big check at the end of the night, right? And so that's how we structured it. And when someone pays, so last year we raised $58,000. And most of the donations came in through PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App.
Wow, so you're like 20% over that this year.
Right.
That's huge.
And PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App
Yep.
take a 3% cut of every donation. So what's 3% of $58,000? I did the math a couple weeks ago. It's $1,800.
Right.
So we took an $1,800 hit. So not only are we not taking overhead money, excuse me, on the scholarships, we take about an
Water.
We take about an $1,800 hit on the scholarships, and that's why we sell. So we have our program book, and we sell ads in the program book because that helps us. Those are our sponsors. That helps us to pay for example, the first $1,800 out of the gate. Well, this year it was $67,000, so that $1,800 becomes $2,000 something with my Laurentine math, right? So
Elementary school.
Right. So.
No, it's a big plus. I'll tell you, the Mirra family donates only to a few organizations like that. So Pentucket High School, we've been donating a scholarship there every year for a long time. Now Georgetown, where I live as well. And that's the common thread. 100% of the money we give to them goes to the student
Right.
going to the college the following year. And, with the way college expenses are ridiculously high, if we can pay for a kid's books for the next semester, we love it. This is where...
And we're very flexible. So most people know that up until last year, Jim Ferrantini, the former mayor of Haverhill, and I did not see eye to eye on just about anything.
Okay.
We were always at odds. Like, we got along when we'd show up at an event, we'd chat having coffee, but I would never go to any of his events ever, and he would never come to mine. So 4 or 5 years ago, he called me and he said, your Haverhill High School kid I know his family and I want to give, but how do I make sure none of the money goes to you?
That sounds like Jim.
And he said, I just want to make sure none of the money goes to you. Right. And I said, how about this? Write the check to the kid. Here's the kid's name. Write the check to the kid. We'll give it directly to the kid. Or the kid's going to Boston College. Write the check to Boston College. Put the kid's name in the memo. We'll make sure that the check gets to Boston College and it comes off of whatever they owe to Boston College. So that's what he did. We also partnered up with 411 Cares, which is a nonprofit in Haverhill. So we had several corporations call us, like the RDT DeMoulas Foundation. Walmart gave $2,000 this year. And they called and said, are you a nonprofit? Because their rules, most corporations, if they're going to give to a charity, it has to be a nonprofit so they can get the tax write-off.
Right.
Fine with me. So we partnered with Lawrence High Alumni, and we partnered with 411 Cares. So when Bernice from Walmart, God bless you, Bernice, thank you for all your help, when she called and said, I'm following you on Facebook, I love what you guys are doing, but are you a nonprofit? I said, we're not. She said, oh, that's too bad because we can only give to nonprofits. And I said, hold the phone, Kemosabe. You can write the check to 411 Cares. They're a nonprofit out of Haverhill. They will write the check to the kid, and that covers everybody. And you get your tax write-off, and you know that's going where it's supposed to go. So over the years, we've found flexibility to make sure, A, that people know that none of the money's going to us for the scholarships. And that, B, if they want a tax write-off, if you're donating to the Lawrence High School kid, write it to Lawrence High Alumni ECCF, and we give the check to alumni. Alumni writes the check to the college. And if it's any of the other scholarships, you write it to 411 Cares, and Dee takes care of that on her end. So let's pull up our next one. I know we're spending way too much time on this tote board. So we had Lawrence High was where we left off, 11406. Whittier, let me tell you the records that this one broke. So Whittier every single year is at the very bottom. Now, what you see at the bottom of this is Edmund Lowe Scholarship. That's a fund that we kick into, but there's no kid attached to it until May when they do their bash, because they don't pick their kids until April or May. So we don't really consider that part of ours. That's just like an extra thing that we do. So our lowest kid this year is the one that says Greater Lawrence Tech. So every year, Whittier is at the bottom every year. Every year, they're either the bottom or the second bottom. And the highest that Whittier has ever gotten last year, and I don't know the exact number, but I can tell you very close, it was like $5,100 last year. We were happy that they broke $5,000. Look at what Natalie Delano pulled in. Can you friggin' believe? Can you friggin' believe that? $10,570. It's amazing what her family was able to. One of the things that helped her to get up there, Lenny, is when I thank someone online, I post a picture of the kid, I thank the person, I put the amount, and then I give the running total. Natalie's parents were sharing all of my thank yous on their Facebook page.
Right, I saw that.
So her father's a Methuen cop, and other Methuen cops saw it on Detective Delano's Facebook page, so they were kicking in. Right. And the mother's a dispatcher up in Newburyport, so her fellow colleagues saw it on her page, and they were kicking in. And if every parent did what Natalie Delano's parents did, those numbers would be even higher. Because it's all about networking. A lot of people don't know what we're doing, and if you're not sharing the information, they don't know. And then they come to you later on when they read the Valley Patriot, and they go, hey, I didn't know your kid was up for a scholarship.
No, they had a picture of Natalie on Facebook.
Right.
I think everyone saw that picture.
Right, yeah. Yes. Yeah. She was so adorable. Yep. So when she first walked in, I said, I've been dying to do this for 3 months. I went over and I pinched her cheeks. Because she just had the cutest cheeks. The next one, Haverhill, the Dan Strange Scholarship. Now, this one was at $8,900. It was at $8,000. It was $8,500. It was under the Phil Glendice Scholarship. It was at $8,500 when we walked in the room. And a member of the Elks came over to me and handed me $1,000 check and said, I want this to go to Cecilia. I've been following you on Facebook. I've been reading all the bios. I really like her. She seems like a really nice kid. I want to give her. And then other people gave us a few other dollars that ended up adding into that. She ended up at $9,750 last year. That scholarship topped off at about $5,100. Phil Glendy. So this scholarship used to be a Lawrence High scholarship for a kid that was special needs, because Phil Glendy was a special needs teacher who ran the Special Olympics at Lawrence High every year. However, we lost our Studio 21 scholarship this year, and that went to Methuen High School, so we had nobody from Methuen High School in our program. So we moved, because we have Lawrence High ROTC, we moved the Phil Glendy scholarship over to Methuen, and I got a call from one of the teachers who said, does it have to be a special needs kid? And I'm like, well, that's the requirement. She said, well, I've got a girl that's going to be a special needs teacher. Would you be willing to consider her? So I talked to the committee, and they were like, yeah, Phil Glendy was a special needs teacher. Why wouldn't we allow that? So we opened it up for that, and we got Abby Mendez, who was just great. Her parents were great. They were so grateful. I loved doing pictures with her. She was just she lit up when she walked in. You got to see my parents, and she's dragging me over to her parents' table. It's just great. She's $8,600. I really wish I could have gotten her up higher, but more may be coming in. We're hoping that the last mailing we did is going to bring in something to maybe hope that we bring that up. Then we have Thomas Kotas, which should say Kotas. I have screwed this kid's name up 7 different ways. It's cost us in the program in one area. It's Kota without the S at the end in another area. Then it's right some places and it's wrong other places. It was wrong online, whatever. By the way, Cecilia, I got her name wrong too. But I blame her mom for that, though. Okay. Because every day I'd say...
Why do you always want to blame someone for things?
Well, every day I'd post online, someone gave $5 to Cecilia Geyer, and I would write her name Celia, and no one ever corrected me. So if I'm spelling it wrong every day online and no one corrects me, I assume that it's right.
No, stop blaming people. Just take the blame and apologize.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
All right. Great Alliance Tech, $8,585. That's... every single one of those kids, Great Alliance Tech, Phil Glendy, going up the list, Haverhill, Whittier, Lawrence High Junior ROTC, every single one of those kids blew away the all-time record for that scholarship.
Wow.
Great Alliance Tech last year was 6,100. Look at that number, 85. Phil Glendy last year was 5,100, 8,600 this year. Every single kid outperformed, with the exception of Dan Cody, and I have a theory on why that is. I think it's because Lawrence High wasn't close. If Lawrence High was close, they would have worked harder to make sure that they stayed in first place, and I think they would have beat it. So that's it. That's our scholarship tote board for 2025. I can't thank everybody enough. I still have, by the way, if you haven't gotten a call and you were a sponsor or you were there and you participated in some way, you will get a call from me at some point, or you will get a text from me at some point. I do keep a running list. I'm very good at thank yous. It's something I sucked at when I started doing the bash, and I've gotten better at it over the years. Even like JG's ice cream, I'm seeing them on the screen here.
I want some today.
I know, doesn't that look great?
I think I'm gonna bring the boys.
I'm never going to lose weight. I'm never going to lose weight ever
Definitely
again.
bringing the boys tonight.
Even JG's ice cream, like I go out to the post office and I get the mail and I go back to my office. I start looking through the mail and I see JG's and I open it. It's a $500 donation for a scholarship.
Wow.
And so it's like, I mean, these are guys that like, you know, the Jafrita brothers are just such great kids. And guys are kids. They're in their 40s or 50s. I'm calling them kids. All right.
Well,
so
their job is great. It's like, make people happy.
Yep. So I just want to take 2 more minutes to talk about the bash. Then we're going to talk about real stuff. Not that the bash isn't real stuff, but I mean political stuff. So we gave out a bunch of awards. We gave out our John, I'm going to make sure I don't forget any, so I brought my thing here. So we gave out our John Ratka Hero Veteran Award, went to Yanitza Mendez. She did not know, only one award winner knew that they were getting an award. So Yanitza Mendez is not a veteran. She's one of two people in bash history to get the John Ratka Hero Veteran Award who's not a veteran. We made her an honorary veteran because she has been working for Clear Path for Veterans New England for over 20 years. She is the head person to help homeless veterans get off the streets When veterans join ClearPath to work there, she's the one that trains them. Like, she's so good at what she does, she's the one that trains them. And every veteran that works over there, most veterans don't even know she's not a veteran. Like, she's so good at what she does that they just assume that she's a veteran. And Randy Carter and Jason Gilbert from ClearPath, both, actually Randy's over at the Bridge Club in Lowell now. He left ClearPath, but I think he's going back. They both nominated her. Nice. And so on the awards, I very rarely pick the award winners. I let people that I trust and that I know that are experts in that field nominate someone, and all I ask for is veto power. Because I want to make sure that, like, when they well, because we've had scholarship kids, right? We've talked about this. We had a scholarship kid 5 years ago from Methuen that we actually called and told them they were getting the scholarship. And then I went on the kid's Facebook page, and the cover photo at the top of the Facebook page was the kid like this, and it said, fuck the police.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, this is a room of cops, firefighters, and veterans. It's their money we're giving. There's no way I'm giving this kid a scholarship. So I ask for veto power for things like that, but 90% of the time I go with what gets recommended by the people that I task with finding us award winners. So congratulations to Yanitza Mendez. The Frank Can Lifetime Achievement Award, this is the first year we've named it, the Frank Can Lifetime Achievement Award, went to, right here in North Andover, the head of our youth director, he's our youth director in North Andover, Rick Gorman. And as it turns out, Rick Gorman is Mike Gorman from TMF. That's his dad. And he announced 2 weeks before the bash that he was retiring after 35 years. So I called Mike and I said, what a great way, your dad's never been to the bash, what a great way to introduce him to what we do, because he runs his own scholarship program. And I'd love to have him in the room. He's never been here. Your mom comes, your sister comes, everybody else comes. Let's give him an award. And he called me back and said, absolutely, Tom, I'll get you all the information that you need. And
nice.
So I gave that award out. We had 3 Scott Clegg Goodwill Ambassador Awards that we gave out. One was to, actually 4. So one was to MJ, who Michael Jimenez, who is active duty military, who is a member of TMF, comes every week to feed the homeless, comes on us when we go to tent cities, because he's like 9 feet tall and we need somebody to like protect us. And he also joined my bash committee this year. As busy as he is, he's being deployed in another month. And as busy as he is, and he's doing his training and everything, with TMF, with school, after all of that, he said, I want to help the bash. And he kicked in, so we gave him an award. Wally and Dan from Harrow's Pies, Wally and Dan Arsenault. Harrow's Pies donates thousands of dollars of food every year, and not just to TMF, to House of Mercy, Daybreak Homeless Shelter, Pegasus House, Women's View. It seems like every nonprofit in the Merrimack Valley reaches out to Dan and Wally for free donations. And I've called both Dan and Wally several times and said, don't let these people exploit you, right? Because they know that you're easy, right? They know that you've got a big heart, and they're calling you looking for stuff. Feel free to say no if you can't do it, because if you go under, you can't help anybody. And I tell it to Mike Agricola all the time over at Salvatore's. So we gave them a Scott Clegg Goodwill Ambassador Award, and then we had a surprise award for Zaka at AFC Urgent Care for not just helping out the community with some of his philanthropy, but also one of the things that really, really struck me was AFC Urgent Care is doing immigration physicals.
Oh.
So while people are coming here illegally flouting our law, he's trying to make the path to legal citizenship easier. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that's worth something. That's worth something. And then the last award we gave out was the Officer Tom Duggan Hero Police Officer Award. She knew she was getting it, so she brought like 5 tables of people, which is great, to Christine Nicolosi, the canine officer, and they really stole the show. They did Kilo.
Yes.
Yeah. And, that's a canine officer, canine dog. All right, so that's it for the bash. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. I know Intern Girl had her favorite line of the night was when Kilo recognized me from jail, and I said, I think the dog recognizes me. She posted that.
Well, Chris said he's confused because of the amount of pills you have to take.
Right.
Oh, man.
The other line of the night was, I don't remember who it was, but somebody got up at the microphone and said, hey, can you people in the back hear us okay? And they yelled, yeah. She goes, well, we can hear you.
That was you.
Was that? No,
Yeah.
no, it wasn't me.
Yes, it was. It was you.
Kim, I thought.
No, I
No,
think it
was it
you.
me? I was on so many drugs that night. I was on a lot of pharmaceuticals because I had to function, and I can barely walk these days. And then there was one other, but I can't remember what it was.
Well, the whole, you were supposed to have me in jail for a while, but now you're sitting here.
Oh,
watching me present,
so every year when I give my talk, I don't speak the first half of the program, as Lenny knows because he was there. I don't speak at all. I don't give out any awards. I don't speak. I don't introduce anybody. I let my team do it. And then at the halfway point, I give my keynote speech. And every year I try to gear it toward the kids because they're going to college. And so I try to do what I do with the Lenny alumni when they foolishly let me speak every year. And so I geared it to the kids. So I talked about going to jail. And I talked about Kelly and Debo abusing the law, which they're going to be so sued for very shortly, abusing the law, trying to stop me from writing a story about them and how I went to jail for your First Amendment right. And I talked about so I got up and I said, how interesting is it? The Methuen police chief and all of his officers, the ones that arrested me, they're here tonight. And Paul Tucker, the district attorney, who prosecuted me and tried to put me in jail for 2.5 years, he's here tonight. And if he had succeeded, Sheriff Carpenter, who would have been my landlord for the next 2 to 5 years, he's here tonight. And you know what? We all came together. We put all of that aside to come into a room to help a bunch of kids go to college. But what you really need to know is I would be willing to go to jail again to protect our and your First Amendment right. So when you get to college, if you love Donald Trump, you should have heard the boos when I said that too.
Oh, man.
If you love Donald Trump and you're in a room full of people who hate Donald Trump, say it anyway. But if you hate Donald Trump and you're in a room full of people who love Donald Trump, say it anyway. Don't ever let anybody bully you into not saying what you believe is true or expressing yourself if you feel like you need to express yourself. And I'm going to add one more thing to that, which I didn't say in the room that night, but I should have. It was in my notes, but I overlooked it. Also, don't ever let anybody force you to say something you don't believe in. If you don't believe in the transgender stuff, if you don't believe in abortion, if you don't believe in global warming, whatever it is you don't believe in, making you say things you don't believe in is just as bad as censoring you and forcing you not to say something that you believe in. And so that's how I kind of wrapped it up. And I thought I'm going to try and do a little bit of a theme of that when I do the Lonatide alumni.
Yeah, so there will be videos uploaded shortly.
I should have had them by today. My plan was to come in with videos today, but Janet Aldridge and John Abramson, who gave us their services for free, just haven't gotten them to me yet because they're busy, because they're professionals. They do this all the time, and we didn't pay them, so I can't call them and go, hey, where's my videos? So we're on their timeline, and I'm perfectly happy to do that, but that's pretty much it.
We'll let you guys know once it's available and how you can watch it.
Yeah, I will have it online, and usually what I'll do is I'll segment it out. So I'll do the John Racker Award will be one video, the Lonatide Scholarship will be one video, the Dan Cody Scholarship will be on one video, and then I will post one of the entire night for those fools that want to sit through a 4-hour program. So that's pretty much it. And I want to thank Lenny Mirra, who was there. You and your family gave money to the scholarships, and that's pretty great. Anything else you want to wrap up with the intern girl? You were there. You had a great time.
I had a really good time.
I had a lot.
I didn't like my pictures, though. I look like swollen and
Typical
weird. I
woman.
didn't look like how I really look in person.
No, you
Was
did.
not.
You looked like you really do.
Really?
look in
I
person.
look that way?
That's how you look. Yes, that's what people see when they see you.
No way.
Listen, do you see how
Then
fat I looked in the pictures? That's how I look.
I
look
need to
fat.
Camera
lose some
adds
weight.
10 pounds, right?
It does add 10 pounds.
That's such a lie.
That is, yes,
That's
it is.
a lie
Look,
made
we
up
look
by
10
women.
pounds fatter on here.
No, it's a lie
Yes,
made
you
up
guys
by
do.
women. Women made that lie up in the 60s.
That's my excuse.
Yeah, I need to lose some weight.
Lie,
ASAP.
lie.
Gotta start running.
Camera doesn't add 10 pounds. That's what you look like. Ladies, that's what you look like. That's what you look like. So there's a bunch of things going on in the Merrimack Valley I want to get to. How are we doing on time before we start? 'Cause I want to know
We're
how
at 34 minutes.
That's not bad. So we
That's
have
not
to
too
find
bad.
a way to keep the show down to an hour, but we're going to go a little over today. So we got a bunch of things to get to. Let's talk locally. The Lawrence mayor's race is heating up. Nomination papers are over. What?
No, I was there yesterday,
okay.
and I ran into Manny Gonzalez. He was picking up his papers.
Manny's the best. I love Manny.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Right now, I'm still leaning toward Brian DePina, but I can be convinced.
Okay.
After listening to Manny's interview, I certainly can be convinced. The only thing that Manny, I really wanted to hear from him, and I didn't hear it, and I'm going to have him on again to see if maybe I will hear it that next time, is when I asked about the homeless. And Daybreak needs a new building, and I'm not going to support a candidate. I'm just going to tell you right out of the gate. Like, usually I don't say what my requirement is year for year. This year I'm going to tell you what my requirement is. I am not going to support a candidate that's not going to 100% commit to getting Daybreak a new building. Because Daybreak Homeless Shelter has the legal capacity for 44 homeless people a night.
Is this the one on Winter Street?
Yes.
Oh, yes. They need a new building.
It's not even a building. It's two Winnebagos welded together. It's two mobile homes welded together. And they have a capacity of 44 people every night. That's what they get paid for by the state. They accommodate 55 people a night, which means 11 people, Lawrence, I math, 44 to 55, 11 people a night that they don't get paid for, that the state will not reimburse them for.
Yeah.
And there are 300 homeless people sleeping on the streets
Still?
of Lawrence. Yes.
Oh, my word.
Is it there because of location-wise, or can they find another building throughout the city to have it, or is it because of the location?
If whoever the mayor is made this a priority, tomorrow there are 450 buildings in Lawrence that are abandoned that have been tax titled that the city owns, that they could deed over to Karina at Daybreak at the Psychological Center, and then once she had a building, she could apply for grants to fix it up and make it what they need it to be, to retrofit it for what they need. And you wouldn't have 300 people sleeping on the streets. You'd probably have 80. Because there's always going to be that percentage, Lenny, that doesn't want to come in no matter what you do. They won't come in. But the vast majority of them don't want to be out in the cold when it's 2 below zero. They don't. Yeah. And it's a crime that we have lost homeless people, at least 7 that I know of over the last 2 years, to frostbite.
Wow.
They died of frostbite because there was no accommodation for them. And and I know Giovanni's thinking of running. I had a long conversation with him. So happy he was at the bash. So happy. We also had a long conversation about the Lawrence City attorneys and why they need to be fired. And we're going to spend a little time on that on the next show because I still don't have my documents. But Kevin Foley and Tim Houten have been put on notice. I gave them an extra week. They're still playing games. So now I'm going to do all the things that I didn't want to do.
Yeah, take that drive.
Listen, I have nuclear weapons, and I know that there's a tremendous responsibility when you have the power that I have. You own a newspaper. You have influence over political actors, political people, and so I try not to abuse it, but you know what? Just not putting up with that. So I had a long conversation with Giovanni about why they should be fired, and he was nodding in all the right places, although I don't know that he agreed with me. Maybe he was just being polite. But I'm going to be meeting with every single councilor individually.
He's a politician. He knows nodding means yes.
I'm going to be having lunch with every single city councilor individually, and I'm going to be making my pitch for what needs to happen, and then when I think I have the votes, I'm going to meet with the mayor to make the recommendation. I'm going to even try to recruit good candidates to be the next Lawrence City attorney, and I'm going to help them fix their problem. Lawrence's biggest problem right now, you'd think it would be a lot of other things, but the running of municipal government, the biggest problem in Lawrence right now is you have 2 city attorneys giving terrible legal advice to the city. They give terrible legal advice to the council, and they give terrible legal advice to the mayor. And if you don't believe me, just look at what they're doing on the Scott Wood case. Right? Look at what they're doing in the Scott Wood case, and you tell me that that's not going to end up with the city paying an awful lot of money later on because of their recommendations. But I digress. One more thing local, because I know Lenny wants to get to the state stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, since our last show, Tina Conway, the chief of staff for Methuen Mayor DJ Beauregard, has announced her retirement, which really means she's being fired. Let's face it, that's what it means.
It's all your fault, Tom.
It's all my fault. I'm getting blamed for it. And I'm going to be honest with you, I take a little responsibility for it because nobody knew what she had posted on Facebook till I made it a story. And so I do take, but as I said on my last show, I'm getting a lot of crap from people who are friends of Tina, particularly a certain state rep, who are like, well, you called for her to be fired. I never called for her to be fired. You remember what I said when that came up? I said, don't fire her. I'm a First Amendment guy. Move her down to the assessor's office, inspectional services somewhere. Make her a clerk, like in an office where she's not answering phones and not talking to the public. She can't do any public damage to the reputation of the city. But I don't think she should be fired. But she has been asked to leave, which I think is a good political move for DJ Beauregard.
She's leaving with honors, though,
What's that?
Isn't she leaving with honors, basically?
Well, yeah, she gets to retire, right?
She gets a pension.
Yeah, she's calling it a retirement. But between last week's show and this week's show, last week I said something And I just off the top of my head said it. And then after we went off the air, I looked it up. And I said, why didn't I just do a whole story on this? So this is going to be the next Valley Patriot, Lenny. So what she did was she attacked cops, firefighters, and veterans that supported Donald Trump. And basically calling them fascists and attacking them, and you don't care about the public and all. I don't have the exact thing in front of me, but her language was salty. It was very threatening, and it was not something, if you're the face of the mayor's office of a community, you should be doing, considering 50% of the people in Methuen voted for Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you're in Cambridge and it's 80-20, then then nobody cares, right?
Even then.
Right. Even then you shouldn't, but nobody's going to care because 80% of the people in Cambridge hate Donald Trump. But in Methuen, it was 50-50. It was like 51-49. And DJ Beauregard's a smart guy. He knows he's on the ballot in November. Yep. He knows he's got to get elected. He also knows that he is a left-wing liberal Democrat who enjoys the support of the left-wing liberal Democrat Party. And he needs at least 20% of that Donald Trump vote in order to win. And he's probably not going to get it if he keeps Tina Conway. So I think he made a bold move by asking her to retire. This is what I've been told, and I've had it verified, by asking her to quit, leave, retire. I don't care what you want to call it, but asking her to leave. And so she has. But, all the people that are giving me crap, all the people that are giving DJ crap about this is a First Amendment issue. Methuen, by the way, and I want to thank the Methuen teachers who called me from the union and said, hey, Tom, don't let this go because we're teachers. If we said on Facebook what she said on Facebook,
oh my God,
we'd be fired.
Forget it. They'd be gone.
I had a firefighter call me from Methuen and say, if I said on Facebook what she said on Facebook, I'd be fired. And I had 2 police officers from Methuen call me and say, if I said about Barack Obama what she said about Donald Trump, I would be fired and I'd be fighting to get my job back. So how is it that she has to not comply with the city's social media policy? And I remembered that when I was on the show last week, so I went and I looked it up. Here's the social media policy for Methuen. For all of those who think this is a First Amendment issue, it's not. You have the right to say what you want, but you don't have a right to work for the city of Methuen as the mayor's chief of staff. So it's a very long policy, but here's the one that I highlighted. Inappropriate postings that include, for example, discriminatory comments, remarks, harassment, bullying, and or threats of violence or similar inappropriate or unlawful conduct will not be tolerated and may subject a city employee to discipline up to and including termination. Now, if the clerk in the assessor's office has to follow this policy, if a police officer, a firefighter, or a veteran, or the head of veteran services has to follow that policy, if a lowly DPW worker who fills in potholes has to follow that policy, why is Tina Conway any different? Mm-hmm. That's my only question. So she's doubling down. I should have given it to you to pull up on the screen. She changed her name on Facebook to try and hide.
Oh, what's her name?
To try and hide herself. I'm gonna publish it in the next Valley Patriot.
Eggs?
I have the name here?
Is it Devil Eggs?
Is it Devil Egg? Oh, Devil Eggs. It's her new name on Facebook. I shouldn't say it out loud because she'll change it again. Is Rita Christine? That's her new. And then there's a little kid as the Facebook photo, so you have no idea that it's actually her.
You're awful.
I am awful. And when she changes it, I'm going to come in and I'm going to say it again and
I'm
again.
going to mute myself so I can laugh.
Well, I have members of her family that think she's outrageous for what she does, and they won't say it to her because everyone's afraid of her. I don't know why is everyone afraid of this woman. She's running around bullying people, threatening to sue them.
What was her name again?
Her name is Tina Tuma Conway.
No, on the new one.
Oh, the new one is Rita Christine is the new.
What?
Rita Christine is the new one. I should have said it so you could pull it up on the screen. And, she's just a vile human being. She's getting everything that she deserves. The problem for Methuen, and then we're going to talk to Lenny, the problem for Methuen is going to be this. The rumor that I've heard, which I've verified now 9 different ways to Sunday, is that DJ's going to replace her with somebody worse.
Oh, God.
And that's going to be former Methuen City Councilor Jim McCarty, who I believe was 4th last in his class of law school when he graduated. Mm. Not a bright guy.
He graduated.
He graduated. He is very controversial, very hateful. He has an agenda. He wants to be mayor himself someday. I don't know why. Like, forget that I don't like the guy. Pretend I don't even know him. I don't know why the mayor of Methuen, any mayor, would want to hire somebody to be chief of staff who's got their eye on your fucking job. Like, who does that? Like, who hires somebody who's looking for your job? Because this guy's got no loyalty. When he came into the Methuen Council, it was him and Steve Sable were frickin' frack. They were Batman and Robin. They did everything together. And by the time their terms were over, they hated each other because they both betrayed each other because neither one of them have any loyalty. And that's the guy you're going to put to replace Tina Conway. Listen, no skin off my back. It gives me controversies to write about every single week because he's going to be doing all the same stupid shit Tina Conway was doing. But it's certainly going to hurt DJ. And if he was smart, he would hire somebody who's outside Methuen, who comes to do a job every day, that doesn't have an agenda, that doesn't have ambition for your job, that's not looking to run for office, that's not going to be raising money, and just comes in and does the job every day. That's my recommendation for DJ. He never listens to anything I recommend, so I'm looking forward to him hiring Jim McCarty so I can write stories about him.
Why would you want them to be loyal to one another? You want them to be unloyal to one another because they'll hold each other accountable.
Well, when I say loyalty, I mean you're not going to throw him under the bus to try and steal his job. Like if DJ appoints him.
I want him to do that. I want him, if he does something that's inappropriate and as the chief of staff, he's going to come forward. I think as a citizen, I would prefer something like that.
I'm looking more toward like you don't want to sabotage him.
Got it.
So you can run against him next year.
Got it.
Right? I mean, if you have a chief of staff that's going to sabotage you, you know, maybe give you the wrong advice, you go out and you do something on his recommendation, it blows up in your face, now you've got a scandal on your hands, and your chief of staff is the guy talking to the press whose job it is to make it better.
Got it.
But he wants your job, so he's not going to make it better. We've seen that year after year in Lawrence. We've seen chief of staffs throw people just right under the bus because they wanted to run for mayor. Brian DePina's previous chief of staff, his first chief of staff was doing that, and then his third chief of staff, I think he's on the fourth chief of staff now.
Really?
Yeah,
No kidding.
he's had 4 chiefs of staff now. All
wrong
right,
with
so
that
that's all the local stuff, I think. One breaking news story that happened as we were on our way in, Paul Magliacchetti, the Methuen School Committee chairman or vice chairman, announced that he is not running for re-election. I've always liked Mags. He's always been good to the Valley Patriot, but he held an illegal meeting last year.
Is that Haverhill or Methuen?
Haverhill. Did I say Methuen?
It's Haverhill.
Okay,
He's in
sorry,
Haverhill.
Haverhill.
He's in
Yeah, we
Haverhill.
know Paul. Paul's a good guy.
Haverhill. I've always gotten along with him. I like him personally, but last year he broke the law. He had an illegal meeting, and then on top of that, he grandstanded and went after Scott Wood. And, you know, I still like the guy, even though I had to eviscerate him on the front page. And I did something that I probably shouldn't have done. Even I make mistakes, and I regret them. One of them is I left him a nasty message after I found out what he did to Scott Wood because I was so mad. I pulled a Tina Conway. I just didn't do it publicly.
No, it's not Tina anymore. It's Rita Martin.
That's Rita, right? Rita.
Christine.
So I called Mags, and I left him a nasty message. And we'd been friends for years, and I shouldn't have done it. And I left him a nasty message and said, I'm coming after you. I just want you to know before it happens, as a courtesy, I'm coming after you. And he must have called me 6 times to find out what was really going on. And I should have taken his call, and I should have given his side of the story. But his side of the story is bullshit. They went after Scott Wood because of a fake allegation about a text message that people said happened 20 years ago, but there's no actual evidence happened 20 years ago. And then he had an illegal meeting about it. And I was just so outraged by that I bombed him on the front page of my paper. And now he won't take my calls. And rightfully so. I was wrong. I should have done it the way that I did it, but I'm certainly happy that I did do it. It needed to be done. I just should have handled it differently. So
No regrets.
So I will apologize to Mags. He as a human being, he's a good guy. As a politician, he sucked. He got sucked into the Democrat stuff, and he did some really horrible things. And so I called him out on it, but I probably should have done it differently. Probably isn't going to be enough for him. That's fine, but that's the last thing. So where do you want to go? We have Trump cutting funding from Massachusetts education. We have Eversource and the energy situation in Massachusetts, and we have ICE arresting people like crazy in Lawrence this week.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
wherever Lenny wants to go, because I dominated the first half
Wow,
of the
on
show.
this historic day, too. Don't forget today's tariff day for President Trump, where we just imposed a bunch of tariffs on
You want to talk
foreign
about
countries.
the tariffs?
Well, just briefly how it ties into what you already brought up.
Yep.
Because what a lot of people don't know is that those countries already had tariffs on us. For
Right.
some reason, a lot of the news media doesn't report that.
They don't want to report that.
Kind of gloss over that. But as far as what this is going to mean for Massachusetts, they are threatening a lot of cuts to a lot of programs, not just education, but maybe Medicaid. Medicaid is, I believe, the biggest item on the Massachusetts budget. Okay, it's called Mass Health. That's what we call our Medicaid program, and I think it's up around 40% of the state budget. Which, by the way, under
Wait. You said that way too fast for it to sink into my brain.
Mass Health.
Mass Health is 40% of the
It's
state
about
budget.
40. That's where it was when I was there, and it's still the biggest item on the budget. And this budget has ballooned under Governor Healy to $60 billion, right? $62 billion, something like that. And yeah, so we could be looking at cuts from the feds, which means they're not going to be funding our Medicaid, which I think the feds give us about half of that money for Medicaid. And we could be seeing a lot of that go away. Same with education. But, there's that old saying about how there's a word in the Chinese language. The word for crisis is the same for opportunity.
Okay.
This could be an opportunity for Massachusetts, right? Because Democrats, especially here, have complained about how Massachusetts is a donor state. We always send millions more to Washington than we get back. And that's true for every blue state. New York, California, Massachusetts, Illinois, maybe New Hampshire too, always send way more money to the feds than we get back from the feds. So maybe this is an opportunity where if the feds lower federal income taxes, because that's the other side of this equation, that allows Massachusetts to keep their money here and spend it more efficiently. And that's where the rub is. Massachusetts is not known for spending this money efficiently.
Right, well, that's what I was going to ask. So if we spend 40% of our state budget on mass health, is that because, I'm only making an assumption, but I don't know the answer, is that because of the millions of illegal aliens that we're taking and giving benefits to that shouldn't be getting it, or is that just even before they came, was that the case?
It was always high, but here's the scary part. Nobody in the state knows what we're spending on migrants and people here illegally.
Right.
I think they are deliberately not
hiding the
keeping
money.
track.
Yeah, they're hiding
They're
the
not
money.
keeping track of it to make it impossible for anyone to figure out what we're spending on them here. But once again, there's an opportunity here because Tom Homan has been in the state rounding up a lot of people who are here illegally and deporting them. So that, once again, is an opportunity for Massachusetts to get its act together and get its books in order because we are spending billions. We know it's in the billions, Tom, right? I mean, we just had to come up with another $500 million just for shelter spending.
Right.
And we know that hotels are full of people here illegally who, if they came here with nothing, then obviously they're getting their food, their clothing,
Everything.
their housing, everything somewhere, and they're getting their health care somewhere. So are they receiving benefits under Mass Health / Medicaid? We don't know because no one's really keeping track
I think
of
we
this.
know, we just can't prove it because they won't track it.
They deliberately won't track
Right,
it. I don't
right.
think they want anyone in the public to know.
Right.
But once again, this is an opportunity to get our house in order, so to speak.
And by the way, that's one of the reasons why they refused to allow Diana DiZoglio to audit their books, because if Diana
Isn't it
DiZoglio is
amazing?
auditing their books,
Yes.
the public will actually have transparency, and they would be outraged by the amount of even liberal Democrats would be outraged by what's been going on, especially when you consider that she is concealing the fact that we have sex offenders,
Yep.
known sex offenders, in some of these shelters where children are. And we know that because many of them have been arrested, mostly by the feds because the state refuses to arrest them. The state is covering it all up.
Yeah.
Now, if I was a law enforcement officer in Lawrence and I covered up the rape of a child, I would go to jail. I'd lose my job, and I would go to jail. That's against the law. But the state can do it and just with total immunity. Like, I want to know why Tom Homan, and I love Tom Homan, and they're in Lawrence today. I see they're doing a
I love
huge
that.
sweep in Lawrence today. I think it's awesome.
You think
right?
we can bring him in?
What's that?
I would love to meet him. Can we bring him in?
We might be able to get him on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
I don't know
Let's
that we
try.
can get him in physically in the studio. But what I would love to see is there's a lot of bluster going on about arresting government officials who are hindering their ability to arrest illegal aliens. And I'd like to see some of those people who are stealing our money and giving it to illegals and hiding the fact that they're stealing our money to give it to illegals. I'd like to see the FBI or Homeland Security or Tom Homan or somebody at the federal government come into Massachusetts and say, you're going to jail Now, you've got to go to court, and in an open courtroom, you've got to justify what you've done. That's what I want to see. I want to see the mayor of Boston and the governor who purposely concealed sex offenders in shelters with children and then lied to the public. What did they tell us, Lenny? They told us we're doing background checks on them before they go in, and they're not doing background checks. And we know because they're getting arrested, but they're not getting arrested by the state police. They're not getting arrested by the Boston police. They're getting arrested by the feds, which tells you that the state police, the Boston police, they've all been corrupted by the Democrats, who, by the way, if you really want to know what's at the root of all of this, and I'm going to say the quiet part out loud, and everyone's going to duck when I say it, but the Democrat Party in Massachusetts is working for the drug cartels. They just are. Every single thing they do benefits one group and one group only. Do you hear me, state reps and state senators who are friends of mine? Your party is beholden to the Mexican, Colombian, and Dominican drug cartels. Literally every single thing you're doing right now benefits one group, and it's the cartels. And all of the evidence is there. You just got to put it together. You just got to get your act together and do it.
I think you're starting to see some diverging, by the way, between Governor Healy and Mayor Wu. I think Healy is from the law enforcement background, and I think she's starting to wake up to the fact that what you said is true, that there's a lot of people here illegally, living on our dime, and that it benefits nobody. My question is, why isn't Mayor Wu on board with that? Why would she want...
Because she's working for the cartels.
Well, I don't know about that, but the thing is...
Supposedly.
I do. No, she's working for the...
Mayor Wu?
I'm saying it outright. She's working for the cartels.
Okay.
Every single thing she does benefits one group and one group only. It's not the police officers that lost their lives in Boston this year. It's not the kids that are in the classrooms. It's not the kids in the shelters that are getting raped by illegal aliens. It's one group. Every single illegal alien in this state right now, as we're sitting here on April 3rd of 2025, every single illegal alien came to this country through the Mexican drug cartel network of coyotes. Yeah, coyotes. Okay, every single one of them. We have eons of footage that Fox News has got up online of our Border Patrol under Joe Biden cutting off the wristbands. Like when you go to Canterbury Lake Park, they give you a wristband so you know what rides you can go on. They were cutting the wristbands because the cartels were so openly doing this. But here's the real problem. They don't just charge the families to come here. Yeah. Once they come here, they owe them a debt. They have to keep paying, which means they're slaves. We have modern-day slavery at the hands of the drug cartels who pump money into the Democrat Party and all these candidates through all of their money laundering operations, bars, people that own bars, people that own taxi companies, people that own these so-called nonprofits, all of whom the people who work there are all giving money to the Democrats to keep this going.
Can I give you some examples?
Sure,
so
absolutely.
I know.
Please do.
Yeah, so
everybody at home, anyone who doesn't know what's really going on thinks I'm full of shit.
So I know I have this friend who arrived here illegally. He paid $10,000 to come here from the Dominican Republic.
That's a lot of money for a poor person from Mexico.
Of course. So he came here. He had to give a certain amount up front. And then once he was here, he had to then work like crazy jobs to be able to pay them back. He also brought in his two other brothers as well, each $10,000.
Right.
That's already $30,000 per illegal, for 3 illegal immigrants. So, like, if you do all the math, that's just one family. How many legal immigrants do we have? 11 million or something?
Right.
Like, how much money is really floating out there, and who's keeping track of it?
And here's the other dirty secret that nobody wants to talk about whenever we have crime. And whenever you see a really horrific crime going on, we think of it as a domestic situation. What happens when they don't? They don't just put them on a plane and send them back to Colombia, El Salvador, and Mexico. They rape the wives, they rape the children, they kidnap the children, they sell their children into slavery. And what can they do? If you're an illegal alien that paid the cartels to come here, and then they kidnap your kid because you didn't pay them, can you go to the police? How do you go to the police? You can't go to the police. No. So the people that are being trafficked are the actual victims. And the Democrat Party in Massachusetts, I'm going to say it again, and you can believe me or not believe me, I don't care, but it's the truth, so I'm going to say it. The Democrat Party in Massachusetts and the National Democrat Party is working for the cartels and being funded by the cartels. You can sue me all you want, but it's the truth. It's the truth.
Boy, I hope that's wrong.
You know, and
I wish it was, but it's not.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, a lot of the people here illegally have just overstayed their visa. And if we have a good immigrant here who's coming here, like let's say they're a student at BC, BU, MIT, right? Those are the kind of immigrants we need. Okay, we do, because I served on an immigration task force when I was state rep.
Yep.
We went to Washington, D.C., and in one day we came up with a plan to reform our immigration laws, right? And the one thing we all agreed on is that we're done as a country. We're screwed if we don't have a certain amount of immigration, because Americans don't have kids anymore like we used to. Our fertility rate has plummeted, and we're a rapidly aging population, right? And so if we want to be able to fund programs like Medicare and Social Security, which a lot of us are
You
getting.
need people paying into the system.
You need people paying in the system, and we're not having kids. So we need a certain amount of immigration. And the kind of immigration that comes here through those colleges is the kind we want, because they're going to be successful people, hardworking, driven people who are here legally, and are going to be paying a lot more into the system than they're taking out. But
I think
coming here
I think
legally.
right now we need to stop all immigration until we can get this under control. So we can deport the criminals.
But there are people who are paying for it legally. Like for example, in my case, I waited 7 years to be able to come to this country, but we did it the legal way.
Where'd
and
you come in
probably it's Dominican Republic.
Okay.
It's probably like less expensive than paying a cartel $10,000 where you're going through the river and it's dangerous and you don't know if something's gonna happen to you and your kids.
Right.
There's a way about it. It's not like we're a closed down country. No, this is an immigrant country, of course. But there's a way about it. Why risk it in that way?
And here's the other sad fact that nobody wants to hear. If tomorrow you get thrown out into the street and you become homeless, there's no high-priced luxury hotel for you.
Oh, no.
There's
I had
no
a friend.
3 meals a day for you, and you're a legal immigrant that came here the right way.
I told you I had a friend 2 months ago with 2 of her children, became homeless. She went to, I guess Massachusetts has a law about like right to shelter or something. They have no space. They had no space for her.
Because they're housing illegals who
legally.
just got here 20 minutes ago and broke our laws to come here.
Yeah.
And, I don't hold much against the people who come here illegally. You're still coming illegally. You still broke the law. But
at least buy in, pay taxes. At least come into this country and buy in and give back.
Yep.
Not just take and take and take and then expect us just to keep giving.
But the people that are perpetuating this are the same people that for the last 8 years, Lenny, used the phrase, no one's above the law, not even Donald Trump. Remember that? No one's above the law, not even Donald Trump. We're a nation of laws. Unless it's 50 million illegal aliens, then the law is not so important anymore. Suddenly, 50 million people are above the law, just not Donald Trump because we don't like him. But people who might be voting Democrat in the future, or maybe even today, because there's no voter ID, that they might be above the law. That's okay. It goes to show you that everything the Democrats say, and I've written many columns on this, everything the Democrats say as a party is in direct contradiction to everything else they say. On the one hand, nobody's above the law, not Donald Trump. On the other hand, 50 million illegal aliens, that's okay.
They want to talk about empathy, but even empathy needs to be controlled.
Yes.
No, I think that's the scariest thing in the country these days is people become so polarized and so partisan that too many people are just willing to overlook their own party breaking the law. And I'll be the first to admit, it does go both ways.
It sure does.
Republicans sure as hell do it.
Sure does.
But here in Massachusetts, I mean, it's all Democrats. It's completely dominated by Democrats. And anyone skirting the law, it's that party. But it is scary how so many people now in the country are so willing to overlook their own party, ignoring our laws.
So much so, that you had congressmen and senators refuse to stand for a kid with cancer.
Yep, that's right.
Because the other side, Donald Trump, brought the kid with cancer.
It all came down to party affiliation.
Right.
They wouldn't stand for that kid because he was on the red team.
Can you imagine if you're a right-thinking person? I don't mean politically right. I mean you're right in the head. If you're a common sense person who is not a cult member of the Democrat or Republican Party, can you imagine any situation where you would not stand up and applaud for a kid that just survived brain cancer? Like, I can't even imagine, even if it was the most vile, vicious kid in the world, if he survived brain cancer, I'm still standing up and applauding for that kid.
Absolutely.
We had an American hostage that we got out of Russia, and they wouldn't stand for the guy. The guy was he was a hostage in Russia, who they hate supposedly.
Yeah.
Going back to Tom's theory that everything they say is in contradiction to everything else they say, Russia's supposed to be the Antichrist. They're supposed to be the worst country in the world. They're worse than China. They're Russia. Putin, he's so bad. And here's the guy that was a hostage of Putin, and they couldn't stand for the guy. Why? Because Donald Trump invited him? Really?
He's on the wrong side.
Really?
Yep.
Really. So here's something else that we can parlay this into, and that is because we have a communist state in Massachusetts, and that's not hyperbole. It's a one-party state.
It's probably the most one-party state.
Every single executive officer from
I wouldn't brand it though communist.
But it is the governor, lieutenant governor, auditor, treasurer.
Our former governor was Republican.
Well, he had an R next to his name, and I love Charlie, but there was really not a whole lot. That was
the thing about
Republican.
governor is that if you don't have 54 votes in the House to sustain a veto,
right, it
there's
doesn't
nothing
matter.
more than a speed bump.
Right.
And Charlie tried to cut a lot of spending. I was there when he did this, and Democrats like nope. And our spending could have been a lot more in control if he had, like I said,
line item veto,
54 votes to sustain his veto.
Right.
And we never had that many. We just never did. And so that's what happens when you're the most one-party state. Democrats have like 90% of the legislature,
90% of the
100% of the statewide seats you just mentioned, and don't forget 100% of the congressional delegation. Right? Every single rep and senator is in the same party.
90% of those senators.
So how's that working out for us in Congress and in Washington when everyone is on the minority party?
So you would think if Democrats really cared about the poor and the downtrodden, and they had empathy for people, and they were really there for those who just really needed a hand up in government, you would think there would be no homeless in Lawrence.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You would think that homeless veterans would have a place to live. You would think that our Eversource bills wouldn't be 400% what they were 2 years ago. You would think that we wouldn't have some of these problems because at the national level, all they do is they blame Republicans for all of these issues. Then you come to a state like Massachusetts that is a communist state. It's a one-party state. There is no Republican that has any power in Massachusetts right now.
That's right.
And yet we still have homelessness is higher than it was under Charlie Baker now, than it was before. You have taxes are higher.
Because they thrive in that type of environment.
Well,
the Democratic thrives on hunger.
Right.
But like you said, Tom, Democrats always claim to be the side that cares about this, that they have the empathy, that they have all the ideas
Emotional
to
manipulation
fix this.
is what it is.
Not just homelessness, but also inequality, right? And yet you look, Massachusetts has one of the worst records in America when it comes to inequality.
Yep.
Go figure. In fact, you look at all the blue states. Homelessness is up. Inequality is up. Meanwhile, right next door in New Hampshire, a very similar state, how are they doing so much better on these things? Almost no homelessness and very little inequality.
Right.
And they have a balanced state government, right? Right now, the congressional delegation is all Democrat, but their governor is a Republican, and their state legislature is Republican. But it's close. And that's kind of what you need here. You need kind of a more balance.
You need a balance. You need to be able to keep each other in check. And if you go to some states where it's all Republican and the corruption is rampant because there's no Democrats holding them accountable, and they're promising you they're going to lower your taxes, but they never do, and they promise you they're going to get rid of stupid programs, and they never do. They promise they're going to reform education, and they never do. And so you have this no matter what state you go to. This one happens to be all Democrat. But whenever you have a one-party state, that's where you have lots and lots and lots of problems.
Yeah.
And the real rub on this is that the people who get punished the most, the people who suffer the most, are the black and brown people who live in inner cities like Lawrence.
Yep.
You look at the city of Lawrence. Now, I did a whole show on this one day. You look at the city of Lawrence. The mayor's a Democrat. Almost every single city council but one is a Democrat. Every single member of the school committee is a Democrat. All 3 state representatives are Democrat. Both state senators are Democrat. Democrat across the board. Is Lawrence better today than it was 10, 20, 30, or 40 years ago? I think everybody knows the answer to that is no. Everyone agrees, even the Democrats in Lawrence agree the answer is no. But they keep voting for Democrats because Democrats come out every year and go, you know what your problem is? That one Republican in the statehouse. He's a Nazi. He's a Nazi, and he wants to put you in chains. That one guy.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That Lenny Mirra guy. We got to get rid of him if it wasn't for him.
We have a lot to work on. However, I still love the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's my favorite state.
It's getting harder and harder to love it every year.
I mean, great education, healthcare.
Yeah, got a good culture and everything, good restaurant.
But good food.
But is it sustainable in the long run?
Yeah.
Great education where?
People are moving out. Well, our K through 12 education is one of the best in the country.
Oh, yeah. We have the best colleges and prep schools.
Outside of the big cities, though. You get into Boston, and all of a sudden, It's the most expensive system in the world, and their students graduate unable to read.
Same thing with Lawrence.
Right?
Yeah.
But the surrounding towns, you look at Andover, North, Georgetown, Groveland, schools
West
are excellent.
End.
That's why we moved here. That's why I moved here, because I wanted my kids to go to a good school system.
That's why my grandfather migrated here, because of the education.
Exactly. So we're good at that, but for some reason, our big cities, because of what you just described, are failing at the job.
And right now, the Democrat Party is now going after the elderly, and they're going after the poor, who desperately need to pay their Eversource bills. They desperately need to pay their National Grid bills. And there's this kid Elijah. I'm sorry, I don't remember his last name. This kid Elijah on Citizens Against Eversource on Facebook. This kid's a hero. Like one of my friends, who's a head of the teachers union in Methuen, matched me up with this guy and told me about this guy, and I started talking to him on Facebook. And he was supposed to come to the bash and he couldn't make it, but. Wow, this guy is unbelievable. He's holding everybody accountable. He's showing up at all these National Grid and Eversource are having these little powwow sessions, but they're only doing it in like Lawrence, Worcester, and the cities where it's mostly Democrat, where they can push their bullshit and they can lie to people about why their rates are 400% of what they're supposed to be. Right. And Elijah is following them around. He's going to New Bedford. He's going to Worcester. And when they get up and they start with their bullshit, and that's what it is, and when they start with that stuff, he gets up and starts using real numbers and holding them accountable and making sure that everyone in the audience who's a Democrat, who just believes this stuff because it's their side saying it, and he gets them to think. That's so important. He's getting them to think. And when you look at, and I want you to talk a little about this because you sat in the legislature for, 12 years now?
10 years I was there.
10 years?
Yep.
Wow.
Right? We're all blaming Eversource. We're all blaming National Grid. And in a lot of cases, for a lot of reasons, rightfully so. But the bulk of the blame really goes on the governor, doesn't it?
The legislature, actually.
On the legislature. Because
the legislature determines what happens at the end of the day. In fact, the Speaker of the House kind of controls everything in the state.
Right.
And so I was on that committee, Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energy. I was the ranking minority member on there. And year after year, we kept putting these regulations and requirements, these mandates in there. Like we had to mandate that these big utility companies buy a certain amount of energy from wind, a certain amount from solar. We didn't put this on the little municipal electric companies, which is why municipal electric bills are cheaper. But we put it on the big utilities like National Grid and Eversource, just like you said.
So
Same
it's a secret
with
tax.
Natural gas. Well, that's what it is. So
Secret
now
tax.
they get to put these requirements on there, not just for wind and solar, but also for things like mass saves, so we can insulate houses and whatnot.
Do me a favor. Break down Mass Save for me, because a lot of people don't know what it is, and it's such a scam that when people at home hear this, they're going to be like, he's got to be making that up. But they're hopefully going to look it up and see that you're telling the truth.
Like everything else, this is done with the best of intentions. We're going to use that money to insulate houses, make them more efficient, not only insulate, but also give rebates for more efficient water heaters, more efficient appliances, some things like heat pumps that are supposed to be more efficient, so we use less fossil fuels. Greatest intention in the world, but typical Massachusetts, year after year, we keep throwing more and more money, like hundreds of millions into these programs, and there's people just skimming off the top. And but it's been in place for a lot of years now, and we should have insulated every house in the Commonwealth by now.
Right.
Honest to God, everyone should have a free water heater by now.
Right.
With the money we're spending, and I don't know if you saw this, but a cop in Stoneham just went to prison because they finally figured out this guy was skimming off of mass saves.
Oh, I saw that.
Wow.
Yeah, and nobody is talking about this.
Right.
You won't find it in the Boston Globe.
I'm
They don't
gonna make a
want you
note
to know
and make sure
about
we
this.
get that in the
Well,
Your
paper.
state reps don't want you to know about it because this is a boondoggle that the state legislature has put in that it requires utilities to charge their ratepayers for this kind of thing.
Right.
Okay, so that way they don't have to call it a tax. Okay, so
Right.
it's not a tax, but your utility bill now has to cover that.
Right.
As well as, don't forget all these gas leaks that they're making them fix on a schedule. When we had that disaster
Gas,
in
right.
Lawrence and Andover,
Right.
where buildings were literally blown up, right?
Right.
So they wanted to fix every gas leak, regardless of how minor it was. And once again, it was done with the best of intentions. But the thing is, Massachusetts is so poorly run and so inefficient that money just gets skimmed off
I
the
got to
top.
challenge you, though, when you say it was done with the best of intentions.
They start off with the best of intentions.
I don't think they
do.
had.
Empathy.
I think they knew that there were Democrat donors that owned insulation companies, and call me cynical, but I've seen how the sausage is made. So was you. I see who's getting who is getting the windmill turbine contracts? Who's getting the solar contracts?
You're not
They're
wrong.
all big Democrat donors. So this is not about saving the planet. If it was about saving the planet, they wouldn't be burning Teslas.
Well, follow the money.
Right.
Follow the money.
Right.
So who gets to testify before these committees? Those people mostly.
Right.
And who gets the ear of the chairman who's going to decide what happens at the end of the day? It's those people.
Yeah, it's the insulation company that's putting the insulation and that's getting paid through this secret slush fund that they've created, and they've mandated a private company tax you so that it's not obvious that it's actually the government taxing you, which should be illegal too. I don't know how that's legal.
Well, if you just know the system, you find the right lobbyist.
Right.
And you'll notice the most effective lobbyists have names of former state reps.
Right. Isn't that always
So
funny?
Finneran, Dempsey, Travellini, Costello.
Right.
An entity that needs something done will just go to one of those firms.
Remember John O'Brien? Remember the state senator John O'Brien?
Yeah, of course.
This guy talked about how we had to subsidize the energy industry.
Yeah.
We had to subsidize the electric industry. He pushed through bills to subsidize the electric industry, and then he left and took a job with the electric industry. Like, how is that fucking legal? How is that legal?
Follow the money.
Right.
In fact, the Secretary of State's website shows the donations.
So outrageous.
And so these lobbyists will give, like, the max, I think, is like $100 a year. And you look at the names, it's a bunch of Democrat former state reps giving donations to current state reps.
Right.
Year after year after year. So those state reps have these huge war chests, right? And that's why people ask, why do they run unopposed? Well, that's one of the biggest reasons why, because they have this giant war chest full of thousands and thousands of dollars. Like, why? Why would they have that kind of money? This is why. It just wards off anyone from even thinking of running against them. They got hundreds of thousands of dollars in their campaign accounts.
And when you wonder why your local state rep, who knocks on your door at election time, who sounds so common sense, who seems like he agrees with you on the basic stuff, then gets in there and votes against housing for veterans.
Exactly.
But then votes to spend billions of dollars for illegal aliens. Now you know why. Because if they do what the Speaker tells them to do, they get a committee chairmanship. If they get a committee chairmanship, they can vote for all this stupid spending for all this bull crap. And then when they decide to leave the legislature, they've got a guaranteed job in the industry that they just voted to either not regulate or to give subsidies to. And it's all a grift. It's all it took me 45 years of my life to realize that everything that we think is legitimate is a total grift.
Oh, yeah.
Like, everything is wrong. It's funny when we were
only when it's government, though. You got to admit.
My history teacher, Mr. Roosh, God rest his soul, from Lawrence High School, used to say to me, I want you to carry this through life. And I always did. He said, what if everything that we teach you in school turns out to be a lie? What if it's all wrong? Like, I want you to go through life questioning yourself and always questioning whether what you think is real is really real.
That's a smart teacher.
He was great. Well, he was one of my favorite teachers. That's why I remembered him. And I carried that through my life. And when I hit about 45, I'm an old man now. I'm approaching 60. But when I hit 45, and I start really investigating for the Valley Patriot what all this stuff really was, and really drilling down into, I'll tell you, one of the other things that woke me up was the $80 million lie in Salisbury. When I found out that they literally stole $9 million from the ratepayers in Salisbury to build a water treatment plant, that they literally raped and stole $9 million that was not, that you couldn't find in the budget at the end of the year, and they got away with it. They got away with it, and nobody went to jail. And not only did nobody go to jail, but we never got the money back as taxpayers. Like, when I started investigating that kind of stuff, I started to realize, holy crap! Like, is anything real? Like, is the moon landing real? Like, like when you watch the Red Sox, is that real or was it staged? I mean, did they pay off? Like, you start to become a conspiracy, not a nut, because how many conspiracies have turned out to be true through COVID, but like, when you start to drill down and find out that your local state rep, who you think is good because he's your local state rep and you know him, and then you watch how they vote on all the transgender crap to mutilate kids, when you watch how they vote on wasting money on illegal aliens when they campaigned against it, and you try to put that together in your head, it starts to make sense when you realize on the back end they're all getting payoffs. They're all getting paid off, and they all want to climb the ladder of their party and make their party speaker happy, because if they do, there's a big payday. And I mean, ask Diana DeZoglio. There's a big payday on the end if you cooperate.
No, it's a huge payday. So these lobbying firms know that all they have to do, they don't have to bribe the entire legislature. They just got to get Speaker Mariano and Senate President Spilka on their side.
And the heads of the committees to make sure they got out of the committees.
And so to get the votes, because they know that if you get Mariano on your side, he just tells his minions, look, you're going to vote against allowing DeZoglio to audit the legislature.
Right.
This just happened last month in the Massachusetts House. Okay, so some Republicans came up with this rules change that no, we're going to allow the auditor to do this audit like the voters wanted. And Mariano's like, no, you're not. And every single Democrat, except for maybe one guy, kid from Wilmington, said, all right, Mr. Speaker, you got it. We're going to vote against this audit.
Even Colleen Gary voted against it.
Did she really?
Gary. I was so disappointed.
And why? Because what you just said. So Mariano very effectively created a bunch of bogus titles like division leader and assistant minority whip. And if you get one of these, you get a gigantic, you get $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 added to your to your salary. So not only that, but don't forget, that also means your pension will be that much higher as well. Because all you can do is get 3 years at that number, and that's what your pension will be based on.
Right.
Your highest 3 years of
income. So most people think that your state rep gets a base salary and that's it. They don't realize that if they get a committee chairmanship, they pay doubles. And if they get 2 or 3 committee chairmanships, they pay triples and quadruples. So are they going to vote ever, if they truly believe abortion is murder, are they ever going to vote pro-life on anything when the Speaker doesn't want?
However Mariano tells them to vote.
They sell their soul
every time.
And so whenever a new rep gets elected, I always take them to lunch, and I always try to warn them about this. And most of them yes me to death and then don't believe a word I say, and they go along and they end up getting corrupted. But I can tell you there's one guy that didn't. Actually, there's a few, but there's one guy in particular that did, and he's sitting right next to me. When Lenny Mirra,
you know, when you do that, there's a target on your back. Okay, I refuse to take any of that money. Like when I first got elected, you had to put in for travel expenses. Like you had to tell them when you drove to the statehouse, so you get an extra expenditure on your paycheck. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I refuse. And then I would get checks in the mail from like union groups and tax groups and gun groups and abortion groups, and I'm like, I sent them all back. I refused to take a single check. Okay, because I thought that was the right thing to do. But when you do that, now there's a target on your back because now they know. This guy is not on our side.
Well, not only
Look out for this guy.
Not only that,
he's gonna,
there's another psychological thing going on there, Lenny. They send you the check, you send it back. Now they have nothing to hold over you.
Oh, yeah,
so later on,
Absolutely.
if they want you to do something you don't want to do,
forget
and
it.
I've seen this happen. I had a rep call me very recently and tell me that this happened to them. That they got a visit in their fucking office from someone who said, listen, if you don't vote the way we want on this particular bill, we sent you money a few years ago that you put into your campaign account. And by the way, it was illegal for you to do that. It's not illegal for us to give it to you. It's illegal for you to accept it. So if you don't vote
oh, my God, no kidding.
Off the air, I'll tell you who it is.
Oh, jeez.
So he called me and he goes, Tom, what do I do? So I sat down with him and I gave him the best advice that I could. I told him not to run for re-election, actually. I'll tell you exactly what I told him. No, seriously, like you're going to end up going to jail if you don't go along with these guys.
I would just let it go out, you know, just tell the truth.
But then he's going to go to jail. No, like seriously, you can't accept money from certain organizations that do business with the state, and so when you're in a position like me, because I have a newspaper, and so my job is to drill down on this stuff. Every day, I hate humanity more and more. Every day, I do an investigation, or I get a phone call from somebody who tells me a harrowing story that I only wish that the average person had even access to 10% of what I know. And because I say it in an explosive way on the podcast, or I say it in an explosive way on Facebook, a lot of people dismiss it. A lot of people say, oh, it's hyperbole. Oh, that's just Tom. You can't believe anything he says. Trust me when I tell you 99% of the things that I tell the public about what's really going on is actually really going on. And it's pathetic because there's another 500% that I'm not telling you. There's a lot of stuff that I can't say because of the position that I'm in. Politicians will call me, and you know one, who will call me and say, I'm in a pickle. And I have to be able to trust you not to repeat what I'm going to tell you because I'm going to tell you what I did.
Oh, yeah.
And I need your advice on how to get out of it. And then they'll tell me what they did, and I'll be like, I can't believe you did that. That's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. But if you really need to get out of it, this is my advice, and take it or leave it, but this is what I think you should do. And I only wish that I could come in here week after week and tell people what some of that stuff is. Because if they only knew what their local elected officials, city councilors even, are involved in, I mean, making phone calls to make a DWI go away for a brother-in-law and things like that. It's scary what happens, and I say it all the time. If I won the lottery tomorrow and I hired 20 full-time investigators to work for the Valley Patriot, I still couldn't get to every corruption story that comes across my desk.
There's so many. It's true.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, Salisbury's horrible. You think it's a beautiful community, and it's just horrible. Then you go to Amesbury, beautiful community.
I love Amesbury.
And you start investigating the corruption in Amesbury with their board of selectmen. It's worse than Lawrence. Haverhill is worse than everyone focuses on Lawrence, right? Because that's where they get the most money. So that's where most of the focus is. But I can tell you for sure, Haverhill is way worse, way, way worse. Methuen is way, way worse. Amesbury is 100 times, 120 times worse. Salisbury is 120 times worse. It's in every community, and it's exponentially worse the further away from an inner city you get.
No, it's
Haverhill might be
too.
Worcester might be bad, but if you start investigating Spencer, I guarantee you're going to find a lot worse.
No, and you know, like I said, when I was a state rep, I was the ranking minority member for telecommunications, utilities, and energy. And we got,
I bet you saw a lot.
Well, let me just tell you the story. I don't even want to talk about this because it's a friend of mine, but the Globe broke the story, so we can talk about it, right? So the chair is a friend of mine who came in with me as a state rep, always friendly, sends me a Christmas cards of him, his wife, his kids, whatever. And we started touring nuclear power plants. We went to Seabrook, went to another one in Mass, I think maybe Devon's. And I'm thinking, wow, maybe Democrats are coming around on nuclear energy.
Right.
Maybe we're going to finally smarten up and take this new technology that we're really good at because we have the brightest minds in the world.
Which
MIT,
actually will save the planet.
It would save the planet, right? And so we're touring these nuclear power plants, right? And I'm thinking, wow, maybe he's trying to get his fellow Democrats on board nuclear power. Come to find out, he was sleeping with the lobbyist. And guess who the lobbyist represents?
The nuclear industry.
The nuclear industry, right? And you can't make this up. And finally, the Globe broke the story on it. And it's beyond disappointing because it just shows that this is their ulterior motive. And I don't even want to mention the guy's name because he's going through a lot right now.
People can Google it and find out.
They can Google it and find out who was
And here's the other thing.
CFPUE.
People get into this business, as you did. People get into this business wanting to help their community.
Exactly.
And then
when you first run, that's everyone's goal, Tom, regardless of party, okay? There's an open seat right now in Beverly because Jerry Paracella became a judge. He's been there forever, and the Beverly seat is open. And there's good people running, and I guarantee you they have the best of intentions, right? But if a Democrat gets elected, we already know what's going to happen on day one. As soon as they enter that, as soon as they get sworn in, they're going to get a phone call from the Speaker's office, and someone's going to put their arm around their shoulders and say, look around you. There's some people who've been here a long time, and they've got hundreds of thousands of dollars in their campaign account, and they're getting $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on top of their salary, and all you got to do is play ball.
Right.
And they're going to play ball. I'll guarantee it.
It's depressing.
Yep.
Especially on my end. It makes me have much less faith in humanity than most people do. Like my friend Nancy just loves everyone. She hugs everyone. She thinks everybody's good. She thinks everybody's good. Everybody's good at heart. And for the most part, it's almost true. People are genuinely good at heart, but then they get into a position like that.
Yep.
And they find out real quick that it's either play ball and become corrupt.
Right.
Or you're not going to last, and you could end up in jail because it's never the guys that are going along to get along that end up going to jail.
No.
I guarantee your friend ended up getting indicted because somewhere along the way he said no to the wrong guy, and now it's like who's that senator Menendez that had the gold bars in his office?
That was Menendez from New Jersey. Yeah.
Okay, I guarantee you they never would have indicted that guy if he hadn't said no to somebody. Whether it was on Syria, whether it was Iraq, we never would have heard about it. And people think it's a partisan thing. Sometimes it's a partisan thing. But mostly it's if a Republican goes along with the grift, that Republicans, I don't want to mention any names, there's one in the Senate right now that goes along with whatever they want. And that guy could rape 20 kids at a preschool on video and post it on fucking YouTube, and they're not going to indict that guy because he's going along with the grift.
Yeah.
And so it's not always partisan. I know that my Republican friends don't want to hear that. But the fact is, if you're a good person and you get involved, then you have to go along or you're screwed.
Yeah, you're going to have a target on your back. And you know what's going to happen?
Even Colleen Gary, I mean,
every 10 years, there's going to be a redistricting, and if you don't go along to get along, they're going to screw you in that redistricting. Like yours truly. Yep. I lost 70% of my district, lost 5 of my 7 towns in that last redistricting. Right. I mean, it's a total.
And then they committed voter fraud to get you out.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you can't make this stuff up. But once again, if you don't go along to get along, that's how you're going to get treated.
I remember, intern girl. I remember the day Lenny got elected, and I called him up, and I didn't know him. I only knew him from covering his race, but I really admired that, like, he was standing up for things that I thought were good. And when he got elected, I said, hey, we got to go for breakfast. And I don't remember where we went, Lenny, but I remember sitting down with you and saying, okay, I'm going to tell you some things that you're not going to believe.
I remember.
I'm going to tell you other things you're not going to want to believe. But I promise you, by the time you leave the legislature, you're going to be calling me up going, Tom, I can't believe you were right. And one of them was the stolen paintings.
I'll never forget it.
And you said, come on, somebody would have covered that.
Those portraits are huge. You know how hard it would be to steal one of those things?
Yep.
And sure enough, there's a bunch of these portraits that are probably worth millions of dollars that are just missing.
John Adams, it was made like in the 1700s.
What was that? Like the whole in Boston? Was it in Boston?
Yep.
When they
it wasn't the Gardner Museum thing. It was in the State House, literally in the State House.
In the archives of the State House.
There's like a John Adams painting that was done in like 17-something that he actually posed for. That just walked out the door one day, and no one even wants to investigate it because they all know who did it. It's one of them.
It's in a solid wood frame, 4x6 or 5x7, huge. It had to weigh a ton. I mean, you would need like 2-3 guys to carry one of these things, right?
Yep.
You can't do this by slipping it in your jacket. These things are huge, and they're just quote unquote missing.
Yep.
Honest to God, can't make this up.
Well, I think people are innocent only when they're born. After that, gone.
Well, I always say, like, I have friends like Nancy who say that people are basically good and they have to learn to be bad, and I'm like, what's the first word that most babies learn after daddy and mama? It's no, me, mine, right? It's in our instinct to be selfish. It's in our instinct to have self-preservation to get what we want. We have to teach kids to be selfless. We have to teach kids to share. We don't have to teach them not to share.
Oh, you're fighting a million years of evolution.
Right.
Think about it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
natural selection.
Natural selection, yeah.
And I remember Lenny sitting there.
I love being selfish.
I remember his mouth hanging open when we were having breakfast that first day, and he's like, is this guy a nut? Like, I could read his mind. I'm like,
people told me you were a nut. You have a reputation. You got to understand, right?
But that's because I say these things, and
I know.
And they have a stake in people not believing what I'm saying.
That's why I had no qualms with meeting him. I said, no, I'm going to give this guy a chance because I read your paper, and you would talk about the things that no other paper would talk about. And by the way, look what we just talked about today. Do you see it in the Lawrence Eagle Tribune?
No.
Newburyport News?
No.
How about this front page story about you, right? So the Supreme Court case, right? So has the Globe got around to covering it? How about the Herald Tribune?
Nope.
Nowhere.
Lowell Sun, nope.
There you go.
So we won a First Amendment case in the New Hampshire Supreme Court, and if my name was Jim Smith, I would be on the front page of every newspaper.
If you were one of their reporters.
If I was a liberal.
Right?
Right.
Absolutely.
If I worked for the Tribune, it would be on the front page of the Globe, the Herald. Yeah. But I'm the so-called right-wing nut, which had nothing to do with this case.
Are you open to having them interview you, though? Maybe they don't know that you're open to receiving calls. Of course I would. Or, you
think he's going to say no to an interview?
No. But, maybe they think, like, he doesn't want to work with any of us. Or, if you maybe open that door and say, hey, I'm here for interviews. If you guys want to talk, you want to give me a story,
I'll take it one step further. If it was Jill Hemazinski at the Eagle Tribune, who hates my guts, like if she thought she could run me over with her car and get away with it, she would. And I'm not even exaggerating. If Jill Hemazinski was in the position that I was in, and a corrupt Lawrence official was using a restraining order to stop her from writing a story, and she had a case before the New Hampshire Supreme Court, I would write a friend of the court brief, and I would show up to testify if they would let me. Because it doesn't matter that she hates me or I hate her. It doesn't matter that I hate the Eagle Tribune. It doesn't matter that they're my... It doesn't matter that... What's she waving in planes? You keep doing this. What does that mean?
No, I said, we got to go. We got to,
So you've been doing this for an hour. You've been telling me for an hour we got to go?
No, I said 10 minutes, then 5 minutes,
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, you never gave me what the codes were.
I know. That's why we need an off day to come here and figure this stuff out.
So anyways, it's really about the First Amendment for me. But apparently for the Globe, the Herald, the Lowell Sun, the Eagle Tribune, it's not about the First Amendment. They proved they don't give two shits about the First Amendment. They proved that it's really about protecting their own.
Exactly.
And had I lost that case, had the New Hampshire Supreme Court upheld the bogus restraining order that was imposed upon me by Judge Zano in Salem, New Hampshire, because of Kelly Frazier and her convicted felon husband, Debo Brown, a.k.a. Donald Frazier, had they sustained that restraining order, tomorrow those very same individuals could be filing restraining orders against Jill Hemazinski at the Tribune to stop her from writing that story. And then they'd be going, oh, geez, maybe we should have helped Tom. It would have been too late by then. I had to fight this fight alone. I spent well over $25,000 to win this case.
Holy smokes! Did you really?
$25,000 to hire Sullivan and Mullane, and it was worth every penny. Let me tell you something. If you
of course it is.
You got a First Amendment case and your life's on the line, your freedom's on the line, Malloy and Sullivan and Hingham, that's the place to go. That's the place to go because I walked into that thinking we got a 50-50 shot. And by the time we were almost done, I thought maybe 70-30 the other way.
Is it Greg Sullivan?
Greg Sullivan was the one who represented me. And did a phenomenal job. And I can't say enough about them. And I'm going to be paying on those loans for a long time, worth every friggin' penny. But where was the Tribune? Where was the Lowell Sun?
That's what I'm asking.
Where was, by the way, Methuen Life?
Story.
This happened in Methuen. Where was Methuen Life? He reached out to me after it was over to quietly tell me on the phone, "Oh, Tom, geez, it's horrible what happened to you." I'm like, "Well, what about a story?" "Oh, well, you covered it really good, Tom." "Well, yeah, well, it's my paper. How about you throwing a little love and supporting the First Amendment?" "Oh, we got to talk about Student of the Month over at the 10. That's way more important." So where's the Tribune? Where's the Lowell Sun? Where's the North Andover Citizen? Another small little paper. The only one, thanks to you, the only one that actually wrote an editorial in support of our case was the Boston Broadside, Lonnie Brennan. The only one.
Wow.
The only
Your
one.
nemesis, Lonnie Brennan.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Good for him.
Right.
Good for Lonnie.
Hey, I interviewed you on my podcast about this.
That's true. We did a podcast a little. Well, we didn't talk about the court case, but we talked about Debo and Kelly.
Yeah, we did. We talked about the
Listen,
situation.
I'll go on it. Anybody that wants to have me on their podcast to talk about a First Amendment case, mine or anyone else's, it's the most important thing in our Constitution. It's the most important. And if a corrupt government employee at any level can use the criminal justice system to silence a reporter.
That's right.
See, she was petrified. Somebody told her, and it wasn't true, but somebody told her I was following her around taking pictures of her when she was supposed to be on the clock for the city, and she was working for her nonprofit.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And so she was petrified that I actually was following her around and getting video and pictures. So she went and she filed a restraining order so I couldn't follow her around. He's stalking me, she told them. I need a stalking order. And she knew I was working on a story about her. And if they had won, just imagine, the Globe wouldn't be able to follow out. It wouldn't be able to follow around the Speaker of the House. They wouldn't be able to follow around President Spilker in the Senate.
That's right.
Like, you would have Herald reporters would be handcuffed before they started. You'd never know what was going on in your government. You could have a corrupt mayor in Methuen or in Haverhill or anywhere else that's literally stealing money. You'd never be able to hear about it. Because all they'd have to do is, we just found out the Lowell Sun's doing an investigation. That's fine. We'll file a stalking order, and they'll never be able to find out. They'll never be able to, can't follow us around, can't gather the information. So, anyways, I didn't really want to talk about them necessarily today, but I'm always happy to when someone else brings it up. So, do you have any more planes to wave in over?
Well, I do want to give a big shout out to Rita Christine on Facebook.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Are we saying goodbye?
I think so. You have anything else, Lenny, you want to hit before?
No,
we
this
leave?
was a good show.
I had a great time.
I know that there were a lot of people that I need to thank, and I will do that. If I start naming names, I'll forget somebody, and then I'll get phone calls from somebody. You forgot me. I had one person complain, I didn't have my name on my press pass, and we were volunteering. And I'm like, the pettiness. So let's thank our sponsors. Stadium Chiropractic, 4-Star Lighting, W3ON, they are my website hosting company, Enterprise Bank, Chris's Barbershop in Salem, New Hampshire, Main Street, Salem, New Hampshire, right above Sev Mars, so you get your hair cut, then you get on and you have some hummus with Jocelyn. Prime Insurance, the Doug Mercurio Lofts. Doug did a great job as co-host. Next year, I think we're going to make him host. MC, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was great.
Pleasant Valley Landscaping Contractors. AFC Urgent Care. Clear Path for Veterans New England. Tomo and Shaken Seafood. EIS Investigation and Gun Training. Marston and Son Construction. Zany Pesci Lofts and Century 21 McLennan Real Estate. Thank you, Lenny. Thank you, intern girl.
Thank you.
Sounds like Melvin Taylor says you got to go home.
Bye, Rita.
So go home already. Rita Christine.